Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Jensen from Dean's Chat. If you're on the fence as to whether you want to join the American Podiatric Medical Association, jump on in. It's a new APMA. Whether it's advocacy concerns, scope of practice, billing and coding, consider membership at the APMA as your professional insurance. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Dean's Chat, where we discuss all things podiatric medicine. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Jensen. I'm the Dean at the Arizona College of Podiatric Medicine and the co-host for the Dean's Chat podcast. Once again, I am joined by my co-host, Dr. Joanna Richey. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm not in Dallas at the APMA meeting like you are, though.
It is true. But you know what? I actually think it's cooler in Phoenix right now than it is here. But that's another thing.
Sounds good.
Humidity is not my friend.
No, I'm with you. Well, Joe, we've got a phenomenal guest today. I'd like to introduce from Colorado, Dr. William Montross. Dr. Montross, welcome to Dean's Chat.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No, it's always fun when we can make time to do these across time zones. Sometimes we get a little mixed up, but then not always. So welcome. And if it's okay with you, let's go with first names. Let's go Bill and Joe and Jeff.
Sounds like a fine deal.
All right, let me give you a little more formal intro here. So Dr. Montross currently works at the University of Colorado Health Medical Group. He's a graduate of the Schull College of Podiatric Medicine, and he did his residency in Germantown, Tennessee at Baptist Memorial Hospital. He is board certified by the American Board of Foot and Ankle Surgery. And what's very interesting, I thought, in your CV was your innovation and entrepreneurial bend. And I thought, and maybe to kick this interview off, let's talk about that. So you've done a lot of inventions and a lot of work with companies, a lot of intellectual property work. Were you always an inventor, or where did that kind of stem from, Bill?
I always hated inefficiency. I always liked being more efficient, and almost everything I've looked at and developed has been to make things more efficient. I've seen a lot of products, been in business for 35 years, and I hate when something comes out that makes life more difficult. And a lot of things are just engineered for engineering's sake. And so that's how I kind of got interested in development. And I got engineers in my family, and I think just a background of being hands-on.
Well, that's interesting because there's no limit in opportunities to improve things in the world of healthcare.
Very true. Very true. It's great when you see things get better. 35 years ago, we had Synthes screws. That's all, AO, and duct tape and baling wire. And now there's something for everyone. And it's just crazy. It's crazy good.
So Joe, we've had a lot of interviews with docs in the podiatric medical field that have dabbled in inventions and dabbled in intellectual property, but not a lot of them bring it home to the finish line. And Bill, you were able to do that. I think you worked with Integra for a while, correct? Could you tell us some of the work you did and how it got going? But maybe more important, how did you execute upon the idea?
So essentially, when you're using a product, and I've always been very busy, I get those feedbacks from the company. I'm always in the top 80% in the country for RVUs and things like that. And so I'm a user. And so I would use something and tell the company, this needs to be better. This needs to be better. And the big start was with Stryker, and they had some questions for me because I was using their products, and they kind of reworked a couple of things. And that was kind of cool. And then I was talking with other companies, and then I started to develop, and KMI had a first MPJ implant. And they went ahead and he asked me to help use it. And so I used it. I says, this is nice, but it needs to be a lot better because a lot of doctors are having problems with the jigs and then lining it up. And once that's off, everything is off. And then who suffers but the patient? And then the doctor too, because we get frustrated. And so I said, I'm going to design you guys a new one. And they said, that sounds great. And so a week later, I had a whole thing written up, and they said, we love this because it makes sense. And then throughout that process, actually, Ascension purchased a KMI. I'm sorry, Integra purchased KMI, and then Integra wanted to go a different direction. So then I left Integra, and then I went to Ascension. They wanted to do it, and then we did it. And then literally about 2 years later, Integra bought Ascension, and they said, we love the product, and we're sorry we got rid of you. And I'm like, okay. And so then I worked with Integra, and I helped with some of their product development and product teaching. And I love teaching. I work with residents and students, and that's been a real blessing. And then along the way, I got into external fixation and other joint replacements and internal fixation. And so along that way, I saw this isn't done well. We need to do it better. So I came across other ideas, and that's how it all became about.
That's fabulous. Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, and so this is exactly why when I first met Bill, we were lecturing at a conference, and anytime that I get to sit down and nerd out with someone about fracture mechanics or new surgical things that are coming out, and poor Bill, he had to sit there and listen to all my curiosity questions for, I don't even know how long we sat and talked. But what I would love to get from you, Bill, is over the last, 20 years, we've seen a lot of pretty significant change. And you highlighted some of that, even just in the boom of how many companies are producing products. I'm curious, when you first started kind of having these curiosities, like this could be better, how did you figure out that, yep, I'm going to be the person to do this? And this is, you had said that you'd given some feedback to the company, but you clearly did more. How did you keep that ball rolling, or the motivation to keep improving?
Because that's kind of one of my deals. I just like improving things. And so, I want to be more efficient. I want to have things easier. And so companies would come out and ask, hey, what about this plate? Oh, I would do this here because of this. What about the subtalar implant? Oh, no, this is way too short. It has to be like this. And then they would do it. Initially, all these big companies, you can go to them with a napkin and a drawing on a napkin, and they'd go, great, here's a contract on a napkin, or something. And then you'd make these great products and be wonderful. And then it started getting more kind of cutthroat, I would say. And then you could bring an idea to someone, and I have done that before. And next thing you know, they're not talking to you. And next thing you know, there's a product with that was my idea. And so after that, it got to be more serious. And so I know a lot of people who know what I do, and I talk to them, and they say, well, I did this, and this happened to me. And that's how I developed a couple of things and how to protect myself. And that's how some things started.
And I know certainly, and Jeff, you can attest to this too, having gone through the patent process. That's not an easy or inexpensive proposition to do. So if someone was, let's say someone's working with something and they see this idea that they start to kind of formulate in their mind, what advice would you give them in those first early beginning stages?
That is so important. Number one, don't tell anyone. Okay. Not even your friend. Okay. What I do initially is I get an idea and I kind of stew it for a while, and then I'll kind of think, what do I want to do with this? Okay. I have a stack of folders this big of drawings and ideas that all would work. But then I was thinking, why? Because this is the same thing. And it's like, I'm thinking about this, I draw it out, and I maybe make a model. My wife hates me because one whole closet in the house has clay and pens and pipe cleaners. I probably put a couple hundred X-Fix-ons. They're all taken apart and sawn, and all stuff I've taken apart is in this closet, and she hates opening because stuff always falls out on top of her. It's like one of those shows. But it's just something that I'll start to make a model. And then I start thinking, is this really going to help people? Why do I want to do this? Because, I've seen some things come out there that were somewhat ingenious inventions that were, if you look at it, it was silly. A case in point, they came out with a screw that was self-countersinking, which is interesting. But the problem is, what's a countersink? It's a drill. And the company said, hey, we got this great screw. I says, I will never use it. They're like, why? Because you gave me a drill bit on the tip and a drill bit on the head, And they said, what do you mean? And in the lab, I just kept turning it right through the bone because the countersink heads, and they go, oh, and it was on the market for 6 months, and the company was a big company. And so you got to think about things like that. And so once I go ahead and develop it, make it, design it, then I'll have a professional. And so a couple professionals I've used, manufacturers, and we have NDAs, and they'll make me a prototype. And then I'll kind of play with the prototype. And then sometimes the prototype is stuck in the bottom of the closet, and sometimes it goes to the next steps.
Bill, did you go down a path? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Jeff.
I was just going to ask if you went down a path of non-provisional patents early on, provisional patents early on. What was your sequence?
So what I would do is a patent application. So I'd be far enough in my brain where I would actually apply for a patent, and then even a provisional patent, and then you have a year to do the final submission. So yes, I would mainly do those things. Once I decided to bring it to life and it was good enough, I would file a patent, and then I would show someone, and then I would keep, in my mind, developing it and going along with that. But yeah, before I would show anyone on these days, they would either have an NDA or a patent filed, because there is, like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of times when a good idea gets away from you, slips out of your fingers because of, and it happens to me. It happened to me before a few times where, again, that's my idea, and poof, there it goes.
When they stop talking to you, that something's going on that's nefarious.
And honestly, it is nefarious. And that's why when I show them, I let them know up front, hey, I got this patent applied, and I got this applied, and they're like, oh. And a lot of times they'll lack interest because I can't do this, or they just don't like it, and that, either one's fine. But when they get all the information and all of a sudden it goes radio silence, that's when something's afoot.
Absolutely. Sorry, Joe, I cut in on you there.
No, this is great. And this is why it's so fun to have both of your expertise here. And having zero patent experience on my own part, you had mentioned the non-disclosure agreement, or the NDA, Bill.
Yeah.
Do you get a lawyer to help draft that up? Do you just kind of write on a document and you have them sign it? Can you go into a little bit more detail on that procedure?
So there are NDAs online. So you can Google an NDA, and some you can download for free. Some you have to have jerry-rigged by an attorney. It's important to notate there has to be some kind of a clause in there where it's a punishment clause, or it is my idea and you can't take it. And they all have timelines, which is fine. It's just like a patent does. So it's important that you do an NDA and make sure it has some type of teeth. It doesn't have to be barracuda teeth, but it has some kind of teeth. Otherwise, it says you can't use my product and nothing happens. Mm-hmm. And why wouldn't I not use your product? Because nothing's going to happen.
And see, this is the little stuff that's so valuable, right? Like I'll read these stories too, Bill, on LinkedIn, where people will talk about this happening. And Bill's been wonderful. I reached out, saw a post on someone was looking for some things, and that was one of the first things that you had recommended is before you talk to anyone, get a non-disclosure. And again, I just like things that I wouldn't have even thought about as one of those first initial steps. But as soon as you said it, it's like, well, of course that makes sense. And you can see how easy these things happen. So I appreciate both of your because provisional patent, really easy. So go ahead, Jeff.
Bill, I think you and I have been working in parallel universes because my first company was called Med Efficiency. And
there you go.
Because I believe in efficiency too. But here's the question I have for you. When I was designing products, sometimes in my brain, I would get confused. Am I developing this? Obviously, you're hoping it's going to end up on patients and doing well. But a lot of times the motivation is to make it easier on the clinician. Because if the clinician's easier to use, they can find it easier to use. If they're more efficient with it, it'll find its way to more patients. That's important. Don't you think, the utility of that?
That is part of my philosophy. How can I make things better and easier? Too many things make things harder. And sometimes something has to be harder at first, and then it changes. The tightrope, you see these big, huge, giant knot balls on the end, and now they're self-knotting. But there's problems with a lot of those designs and stress reactions. So, and things always evolve. I think the biggest thing I tell residents is the bunion you're doing now, you're not going to do in 5 years. And like, oh no, I did the best bunion in the world. And I'm like, well, yeah, now you do. But in 5 years, they're going to have the Joe Richey bunion, and it's going to be taking the universe by storm. It's going to be that good. It's going to be, her mental powers are going to manipulate the bunion or something like that, But
you heard it here first on Dean's Chat, everyone.
Yes. I saw the patent for it. It's scary. What about AI? But
so you made reference. I thought it was hilarious. The evolving world of mergers and acquisitions. You never know who's going to buy who tomorrow.
Yes, and one of the things now is almost all the big companies have stopped development because they were glacial. It was development by committee. And the committee, well, I like this, I like that, and you're missing the point. It's move it forward. And so now I'm doing it by myself, and or you go through a small company, which I'm doing a couple of those things. I did a couple of things by myself, and they're coming out in patents and are already being inserted, and a couple of them are being developed with other companies. But the big companies are no longer interested. Unless it's something highly complex. But, the piece of paper thing doesn't work anymore. You have to have prototypes, and you have to have models. And, for me, I'm not sure if Joe told you that I have a first MPJ implant that the companies loved, and they go, so when's it coming out? And I'm thinking, I was hoping you would help me with that. And then all of a sudden they go, no. And I look at my engineer like, okay, what's in your bank account? What's in my bank account? Okay, that's not enough. What's in your retirement account? And then, we bang it out. Now, we get some interest.
It's interesting. What I've seen over the years is the big companies want to take advantage of but acquire the other innovative, creative, younger companies. And then they've got the ability to scale it. The big companies do.
Yeah. Yeah, I was told on one big company, one of the biggest in the world, they said, once I sell over 1,000 implants, they want to talk to me.
Right.
I'm thinking, holy shit, that's a lot of product.
Yeah. Well, they want to see that runway, and they want to see success, and they want to tilt the odds in their favor, right? Yeah.
But I will say, once you have that many sales out, then you're more profitable. And then you can, for the new people, you have multipliers. So if you have a special screw, the multiplier is like 5 times the sales. So if this special screw is nice and it's 5, because that's just a special screw. It might even be 3 times the sales. But if you get something that's really unique, this special metal or this other special device, then the multiple can be up to 10 times or even higher. So
truly amazing. Such great discussion. I love it.
Right. And it's funny because as I think about other startup companies and startup culture, there's so much crossover. And now I'm super curious. Have either of you watched Silicon Valley?
I have not.
Oh, it just goes through all the. Yeah, it's hilarious just in terms of like, you finally get momentum on something and then it gets squashed or it's hilarious in its own comedy rights. But I was just curious how real that was, because sometimes things are exaggerated for comedic effect versus like, it's pretty accurate.
A lot of those shows have a lot of accuracy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I'll share just a quick minute of a story. So I had a product that was being made in Kansas for a casting device, and a big company bought it. We all know the company, and they moved all the production to Mexico. So my job was to go down to Mexico and make sure that it was Reynosa. It was right across from McAllen, where the new podiatry school is. So I was down in Reynosa, and I went to the headquarters where they were kitting and manufacturing, putting everything together for my product. They had another assembly line 15 feet away copying that product that was going to be under their name. And they had all of our customer list because they were drop shipping. And so all of a sudden we had fewer sales. I was like, what's going on here? What's going on.
Yeah.
So I think that the lesson there is, like you said, Bill, up front, NDAs, very clear understanding of the business and what can and can't be shared. But it gets dicey when people are buying each other and things get mixed up.
Did you know APMA provides help with public health initiatives such as fall prevention, opioid abuse prevention, and addressing health disparities?
Did you know the APMA provides over $400,000 in scholarships annually to students pursuing podiatric medicine, helping the next generation of foot and ankle specialists?
If you're serious about this profession, if you want to grow, to lead, to make a lasting impact, join APMA today.
The thing on that too is, until you've gone through it, these are some of those areas that, how do you try to be preemptive or cautious or protect yourself? And so outside of things like patents and NDAs, are there other pieces of advice that either of you would also maybe give someone who, let's say they've gone through the first initial stages, they haven't got a company that's acquired them or any of that yet, but is there other things that you would recommend?
The problem is we all have egos, and we all want people to like us, like our products. And so we want to kind of talk about them. And, you really got to hold to your guns to someone you really trust and someone you can really work through, because it really is a dog eat dog world out there. And just like that, someone takes your baby and it's like, that's mine. That's mine. But, I want my child back, and they've stolen your child, and it's horrible, and it's a bad feeling.
Yeah, I agree with you. And to your earlier point, Bill, ideas are fragile. If you start sharing them with people, they can crush your dream in a hurry because it's fragile, right? It's new. It's what could be potentially. The other thing you said that I thought was just beautiful, you talked about task forces. And I've told Joe forever, you want to kill a great idea, put a task force together. Everybody will tell you why you shouldn't do it or why it's not needed.
Yeah.
But to specifically answer your question, Joe, I was able to get some small business innovation research grants through the NIH. All the different branches of the NIH have small business innovation research projects that they'll fund at different phases. And we got grants through National Institute of Aging, National Institute of General Medical Sciences, National Institute of Diabetes, Digestive, and Kidney Disorders. But I'll tell you what, you have to have patience. To your point earlier, Bill, it takes forever, right? Like you think getting patents are tough, getting grants, one submission, and they give you their review, and then you thank them for their insightful points and rewrite it and submit it again. Next thing you know, it's a year and a half later, and you might be getting, if you have a prototype, like you were saying, $100,000 seed funding or something. So it's not easy. There's no easy way to skin the cat.
Yeah, and some ideas have a shelf life. You look at some of the bunion procedures that have come out recently, whether it's a head procedure or a Lapidus type procedure. There's all kinds of ways to skin a cat. And so, you want to kind of get it out there because something else is going to go ahead and take it. And even if you have a patent, they can do just enough. Like some of the big companies have gone out to other companies and okay, we won, but we lost because of this. And so it's, but then again, in 5 years, we're going to be doing the Joe Richey bunion.
That's right.
For sure. And
we got to talk offline about what that might look like.
Let's get the intellectual property guarded, immediately protected.
There you go.
So Bill, I have a question for you. It's really fun to invent things, but your full-time job isn't sitting in a lab with engineers, trying to work around other people's patents or develop new products. You are a busy doctor.
Yes.
How do you find time for everything, Bill?
So you got to be selective what you do. And you have to go ahead and approach things and have one project at a time as best you can. You have an idea, you got to draw it out, and you kind of put that to the side, maybe add to it once in a while, but you focus on a couple of small things. And I find if you let things marinate a little bit, it kind of helps out. During COVID, I had a lot more time, and suddenly I had 6 patents come out, five patents come out. I'm like, oh, which one do I do? And so I kind of got 2 of them going. One was my implant, other one was for external fixation. And then you got to kind of let that develop and let that grow and nurture it, and then keep in the back of your mind these other things. I mean, if I had money, I would be much further along, but I am not beyond wealthy. I'm comfortable, but and that's what it is. As you know, having to do a patent or provisionals, make models, it could be quite costly and timely. And then they send something to you. Oh, that's not what I meant. I meant this, and then you got to send it back. And then because you're number 8 on the list because they like these other companies in front of you, and I have one, to make 5 prototypes is very expensive as opposed to making a whole product line for a big company. So I'm kind of their weekend guys. That their new guys will get my projects.
Like Mark Cuban says, you only got to be right once.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So fun. So tell us about, Joe, do you want to continue on this topic or do you want to shift gears?
I love it. Well, let's take a quick break to hear from a sponsor, and then we'll be back to shift gears.
Okay, we're back because we're putting APMA ads in. Ethan will edit accordingly. All right, you can take it from there, Joe.
All right. So I actually kind of want to go way back real quick, because part of certainly the theme of our show. How did you get into podiatry, Bill?
I was a weird kid. When I was in high school, my stepmother was a nurse, and we were talking about things, and I loved medicine, and the little computer printer, the printouts we got. I got a printout that I was supposed to be either a forest ranger or like a brain surgeon, and so it was all these. It was just all over the place because I kind of am scatterbrained sometimes. And so I kind of went through other things, and it kind of narrowed me down. I still have the printout in my basement. I kept it. It says podiatrist. And I'm like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
And
that's hilarious.
And then she's like, told me about it. It says, wow, that sounds great. And it's a 9-to-5 job. You get a good life, you get a good income, and you do this. And so I'm thinking, oh, wow. And then once I get in podiatry, I choose trauma, and I choose diabetic limb salvage and infections, and which has, it's a 24/7 job. But
yeah, there's nothing 9 to 5.
Yeah. And then later in my family, my grandmother lost a foot, then her leg to diabetes, and then her foot, then her leg to diabetes. And that was within 2 years. Then obviously within a year, she passed away. So, but it all started with that computer printout. So
that's so hilarious.
Interesting. That's the first we've ever had of that story, for sure.
I'm old.
I love it. I didn't know that podiatrist was one of the options when you took those tests.
Yeah.
Obviously, you didn't get a forest ranger or a brain surgeon, so that's melted into a podiatrist. So somehow,
I love it. Well, I read recently Glenn Weinrob's book, Passion and Practice, and he was talking about how he was introduced to podiatry. He was skiing with an orthopedic surgeon, and Glenn said something like, "I think I want to be a doctor. I think I want to be an orthopedic surgeon." He said, "No, don't be an orthopedic surgeon. Be a foot and ankle surgeon. They do orthopedics and also have a life." I thought that was a great introduction, right?
Yeah.
But then depends on where you go. Like you said, you could be up all night. You could be doing evenings. It depends on what you decide you want to do, which is the beauty of podiatry, really.
Yeah, and podiatrists in general are much happier than orthopedic surgeons.
Yeah, we hear that all the time when we're interviewing students. When they go around and they are spending time with every practitioner and every specialty, they keep saying the podiatrists are the happiest practitioners, probably because they designed their practice to be what they want it to be and what they like to do. All right, so then you ended up at Shoal, correct?
Shoal College, yep.
So where did you grow up, Bill?
I grew up in Long Island. I had a 2-year hiatus in California for junior high, then back for high school. And then I went to Colgate, upstate New York, and then I went to Shoal in Chicago.
Fantastic. How was Shoal? How was the experience?
It was really nice. It's in a pretty decent part of town. It's great clinic, great faculty. I had great experience, except for when my bike was stolen and my car was stolen, and then I was held at gunpoint. So
except for that,
and people
third time's a charm.
Yeah, third time's a charm. So, but yeah, you go ahead, and that can happen anywhere. So.
And then, Germantown, Tennessee is a beautiful place. You were at Baptist Memorial Hospital for your residency. Tell us about that.
So it was great. It was kind of a sleeper program. They worked with Campbell's clinic down there somewhat. So it was really good experience. It was very, very high volume. We had every day there were multiple surgeries. So that was nice. The call wasn't too horrible. And for the three residents of us, all three guys, food was great. And matter of fact, they told us that we had to stop bringing sandwiches home from the cafeteria because they were running out of food for everyone else.
That's great. I love it. So, Joe, when do you want to go to rapid fire, or do you have some more?
We can certainly move to rapid fire, because I think that we could have some really fun rapid fire discussions here.
Oh, absolutely. You can go first.
All right, I'm going to go first. All right, Bill, this is my new favorite question. If you could pick 3 people to have dinner with at any time period in history, who would it be and why?
Martin Luther King Jr., because he's such an icon. I believe in one of those Japanese guys, and it's best to have peace but prepare for war. And the best way to have peace is to talk peace, and he always talked peace. That's number one. Some of the older figures, gosh, there's just so many of them. You can talk to Warren Buffett on business, and he's a current figure just to have someone who's so embedded in that kind of business and how he thinks. It's fascinating how different people think. And then I like to talk to Mozart. I love his music, and his life was just so fascinating. And it was like, the candle in the wind, it just burned bright and blew out too quickly. But, it seemed a lot of it was self-driven though. But to have the brain to just create this music in your head, it's just fascinating. So I guess those three.
I love that. Yeah, that's excellent.
So, Bill, outside of a brain surgeon and a park ranger, you ended up being a podiatrist. If you weren't a podiatrist, what would you be?
So I think I would have made a good attorney. And I don't know why I would say that, but because I'm constantly looking at different angles of things. The same thing with podiatry. If something's going on in podiatry during a surgery, and gosh, this doesn't fit or this doesn't work, you have to be calm and work around that. I think I can work around that with business or an attorney or something. I would have loved to have been a rock star, but my voice is horrible.
If it wasn't only for that.
Yes.
There's some rock stars with some moderate voice talent. Well, that'll be the prediction for the next one. Is I'll come out with my bunion surgery, and we're going to see your first performance on stage. There we go. All right, so I think I might spin a new question. Tell us about a period. This is not a rapid fire. Sorry, Jeff. This is an interesting question though, where there was uncertainty and how you navigated it.
Oh, that's so. When I first graduated from residency, we think we have all this knowledge and greatness, and we see all these people who are succeeding, and you want to succeed. And I went to work in Colorado, and it was a farce. The person I worked with, it turned out to be not a good person. And you hear about podiatrists eat their young. And so, after a few months, it was obvious that it was going to be bad. And so I couldn't get any money for a loan for an office. And so I rented a room from a chiropractor. And so I was thinking about going to California, work for my brother who's a roofer. I would do roofing because it was just so draining, soul sucking. I had a car and a Nissan Sentra, and to make money, I went to rural clinics, and I would see maybe 10 people, but drive 4 hours to see 10 patients. And then I would drive to another rural clinic and see 10 patients. So I was the podiatrist of the state of Colorado. and I put in almost 65,000 miles in 1 year on my car. And I was barely making enough money that 2 years later, I didn't pay any taxes. And I called the IRS and say, listen, I'm finally getting some money. I finally got a little gig here, and I didn't pay taxes. And the guy was really, really, really upset. I was a doctor not paying taxes. And I said, I have my numbers here. I really apologize. I felt horrible, horrible, horrible. And I told him what my numbers were. And he literally laughed at me. And I owed maybe $5,000 because all this money was going out the window. And so, he says, I'm not even going to charge you interest. And so I got my IRS 2 years not paying done in like 6 months. But it was such a horrible time where, you're the guy you're renting a townhouse from, he's asking you for your rent, and you're waiting for, you literally stand by the mailbox waiting for the check to come in. I'm putting these bills out. I'm billing by myself. I'm sending my underwear in my apartment and sending these bills out and hoping someone would pay really fast because I wasn't eating well. And it was crushing. It was crushing, and we all have egos. And I thought I was a good person and a good doctor. And here I am. I'm like, crying to work. So it was rough.
Yeah. So just grit and determination. And then if you could give that version of yourself advice in that moment, knowing what you know now and where you are at this stage of your life, what would you say?
I would take singing lessons. And so I honestly, I would, no, something else. You have to be more diligent in where you get your job at. And it's much easier today because they can go online and find all these jobs, all these places, and podiatry is much more accepted. In my town, I was the first podiatrist at 2 different hospitals to be the first podiatrist to operate there because, in Colorado Springs, Denver was great with podiatry, but Colorado Springs is like, podiatrist, don't you just do ingrown nails? I'm like, no, I'm a master bunion surgery person, and just to get acceptance, and I would do a surgery at the hospital and just keep persevering. And the staff would eventually come to you and say, what do you do for heel pain? Mm-hmm. Or, hey, I got this thing here. What do you think? Do you have to operate on bunions right away? And you're biting your tongue. You go, no. And then you just be honest with the patient and you be honest with the staff. And eventually it works itself out. But it was painful. I had to borrow money from my parents while I was a doctor, and more than on one occasion. So it was pretty rough.
It's interesting,
Thank you for
Bill.
sharing that.
Yeah, it's interesting, Bill, because even in Denver, you had docs that everyone was working at Highlands Hospital. Became press, but when they were starting to break open other areas of Colorado, like Dan Hatch going up to Greeley, or just going to different hospitals and branching out and getting privileges, it was the generation just before us that really paved the road. But now I'm listening to you thinking, oh my gosh, you paved the road down there. You were one of the docs, right? That's fabulous.
Yeah, and before those hospitals, it was Vencor.
Vencor
was a hospital, and I actually had to bring patients up there for surgery.
From Colorado Springs?
From Colorado Springs, because getting privileges at a surgical center, they didn't have the right, because I had no block time, and the patients want their surgeries done. And so, hey, I can go to VADS. I've bought cases to Vencor. So,
Really? Makes you appreciate how far we've come in this profession over the years, because now you get out of a residency, you move to an area, you fill out credentialing, you're on staff, you get your privileges, you're off to the races.
Yeah, it is it's a different ballgame today than it was 35 years ago. It was rough. And I'll keep that.
It highlights the progress of our profession over time.
Yeah.
For sure. Oh my gosh. Okay. Back to rapid fire.
Yeah. Sorry. Back to rapid fire.
All right.
I couldn't help myself. That was just a curiosity question.
No, that's a great question. So Bill, Colorado, Southern Colorado, known for Mexican food. What is the Mexican food place of choice down in the Springs?
So Arceo's is a really good Mexican food place. They have a really good menu. I like chili rellenos are very good. So.
Very good. All right. Thank you. Your turn, Joe.
All right. So you said you'd be a rock star in another life. What's your music of choice?
So my iPod has everything from Julio Iglesias to Madonna to Metallica, Led Zeppelin, jazz. I actually have an OR playlist, and half the playlist is old theme songs to like Gunsmoke, Dragnet, Hawaii Five-0. And the thing, we have a game. Okay, guess what this was? And half the people go, I've never heard that one before. And they all heard the Flintstones. They always get that one right.
How about Leave It to Beaver? Dun-dun.
Yeah, Leave It. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So a lot of those theme songs they would get. And then I had the silly songs. I had songs, honestly, I have Brady Bunch hits on my iPod, and I have a couple of them. And we just play half the song because I can't take the whole thing. And then I also have the Partridge Family songs, some of the Monkees songs. So it's just hilarious. And then, rock, contemporary, top 40, everything. Lady Gaga, Nicki Minaj. So, yeah.
All right. That's fantastic. So are you going to be the next Lady Gaga then in your rock star career? Or what kind of music are you singing?
I would probably be the roadie for that person. So
fair enough.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right. Well, Bill, we certainly appreciate you taking time out of your day. I'm glad you could stick with us for an hour. Sorry about the time screw up. Sometimes that happens. And
yeah.
Joe, any last words?
No, thank you so much for your time, Bill. This has just been such a fun interview. And again, I appreciate all the advice. We often get people that they have questions and there isn't like a clear mentorship pathway for things like entrepreneurship. So appreciate your time and your willingness to share. I take doctors' calls all the time who have ideas. And a lot of them, I just give them advice, just what I told you here. It's just, do this, do this, do this. Don't tell me about your device. I don't need to know, but this is how you start. And a couple have continued with me, but a lot of them have just gone back on their own, which is just getting the first step. A 10,000 mile journey begins with one step, or one thought to take a step.
As one friend who's an entrepreneur told me, it's one step, but it is a slippery slope.
Yeah,
it can be.
That one step can catapult you down that mountain very quickly.
Absolutely. All right. Well, to all of our listeners out there, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please give us a 5-star rating. We would also appreciate a few comments. And if you're watching on YouTube, by all means, become a subscriber. Joe and I will continue to bring you leaders in the podiatric profession, and we'll bring you students and residents and young practitioners and inventors like Dr. Montross. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Bill, we're sending you a Dean's Chat cup, kind of get some caffeine going, stimulate that creative process a little bit. We'll send you one in the mail.
I appreciate it. That's awesome.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Till next week, everybody. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.